Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Witter, and this is where we meet the people reshaping politics, leaders, artists, reformers, rule breakers, making it more hopeful, more human, and more ready for the future. I'm super honored to introduce you today to Sochua. She was born in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, a place I have never been, and I know she is not spending time there either, which we will talk about soon, and left the country at 18 to study in Paris before moving to the United States, where she earned degrees in psychology and social work. And I've just found personally in my life, social workers often make great politicians because they love to do the casework, right, of really organizing and connecting with people. So let's talk about that. After losing her parents during the Khmer Rouge very dark period, she worked very closely with Cambodian communities in the US and became deeply involved in human and women's rights. She returned to Cambodia in 1989 to help rebuild the country, founding Khmer, Cambodia's first women's empowerment organization. And then she later entered politics herself, serving as a member of parliament and as Minister of Women's and Veterans Affairs, where she championed gender justice, anti-trafficking, and women's political participation. In 2004, she resigned from that position as minister over corruption and joined the opposition, later becoming vice president of the Cambodia National Rescue Party. After the party was dissolved in 2017, she was banned from politics and now lives in exile. Today, she continues with so much energy and compassion her pro-democracy and human rights advocacy internationally and serves as president of the Khmer Movement for Democracy. She has lived the full arc of political leadership, and she's not giving up. From building institutions to walking away from power to public office to organizing others in exile. Today, we're exploring what her journey teaches us about values, resilience, and how leaders can imagine and really work for the type of politics that we all want. I was really lucky to meet her at Better Politics Day in 2025. We actually met in the bathroom. This little secret, women often meet in bathrooms, checking hair, lipstick, and supporting one another. So later did I find out you were exactly the person that I was meant to meet that day. So that's a very nice beginning to what I hope is a long, long friendship. So really warm welcome to the Better Politics podcast. And I'd like to start off, I spoke a little bit about your backstory, but what really drew you into politics? What was that moment?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Better Politics, for having me today. I really never stopped wanting to be part of a story. Because when I was a little girl, I would stay with my grandmother, listen to stories. And we had a little radio far distant listening to stories. And I said, wow, can I be part of that story? Can I build? Can I find justice? And fix the world. That was a dream. And I'm not talking about fixing the world. But today, of course, you cannot fix the world by yourself. And that's why I realized that going into politics, because the politics means everyone has to be part of it. Everyone wants to have a solution. And that solution, I understand, cannot be a magic one from the stories that I grew up with. And going back to Cambodia after 18 years in exile, after genocide, after losing my parents and 1/3 of the nation in mass graves, it was really, really clear that you need to come into rebuilding Cambodia first as a citizen, but also finding solution at the grassroots level, at local level, national level. And to me, it was then get into politics.
Because in politics is where you saw the power to make those changes, right? That's where the direct power is.
Exactly. Although I was talking and listening to stories about having the power to change, but my father always told me never, ever, ever get into politics because politics are very, very dirty, it's corrupt, they're only about men wanting power. And then when I got home, a home that I grew up in. And when I came back 18 years later, it was, as you can tell, totally devastated. No electricity, no water, no, just a different home. And that's when I say to myself, get involved. If you're serious, if it took me 18 years to go back home, and I'm not coming back home as a little girl. I came back home with two young children. I came back home, and at that time, mass graves were still everywhere. In every pagoda, every public, every school, there were bones. So the solution to it is to get into where the mass graves were. So to me, getting in politics is about getting at the level of the people where the problems are. And that's how I see politics. And I got involved and with the women at the very beginning after the war. 75% of our women were widows or single women or young girls on their own, on our own. And to me, I was also like on my own. 18 years made a difference.
18 years. 18 years. So we met in the bathroom at Better Politics Day, but you were in Berlin also for Berlin Freedom Week. And you were very active in working with other folks who are working for freedom as exiles outside of their country. And we know many of them who were part of Berlin Freedom Week too, or who are Venezuelan, who are kind of watching very closely what's going on. What are you doing now? So you're living in exile. You obviously aren't in direct politics in the same way because you're in exile. So just give a sense of how you're being political in this moment.
Although I'm a US citizen, I went back home and I worked and I was involved and very active in politics in Cambodia at that time for 30 so years. From 1989 to 2017, I was back home. I was a member of parliament more than two terms and then Minister for Women and Veterans Affairs. Now, and because of the dissolution, unjust and unconstitutional dissolution of my party, I had to flee Cambodia. Now I'm back to America, which is my second home, and with a community of refugees of the Cambodian diaspora represent about 3 million of us outside at this moment. So in each community that I go to, I see the potential. I see the voices. I see the contribution of our community to the American life, the American melting pot. However, I can see that all the generation of Cambodians born today in Cambodia or anywhere, because I travel all over the world to meet the Cambodian diaspora. The parents, the grandparents, do not want to talk about the past. The past is just the genocide. Either they are stuck with genocide or they just say forget it. And they're too busy with their lives. And most of us, unfortunately, are here not having working in factories, working in skill labor, and their children are in college and have good schools, but the community is not politically organized. And I am now the president of the Khmer Movement for Democracy. Khmer means Cambodian. And this is a movement. It's not a political party, but it's a political movement. Political because if we are going to be active citizens, I believe in activism. I believe in active citizenship. If we are going to be active Americans, we have to be organized first. Listen to our stories everywhere. Yes, listen to the pain and all that. We lost our country. But we have to go beyond that. And to go beyond that, you first need to be organized. Who's the leader of this community? How do we get elected in this community? How do our voices get heard? How do we build our agency in this community? Like, for example, I am in Rhode Island. There are about 8,000 Cambodians. We have three
Wow.
pagodas. And we don't have any representation at the local politics in Rhode Island or anywhere else. In some cities, we do have members of the city council, but we don't have anybody else above local politics. And that's why Khmer Movement for the Democracy is about organizing the community, is about exchanging across generation. Cambodian children born here or born in Australia or anywhere, the roots are mixed. And it is mixture of roots that will give us the creativity, the power, the experience to make changes first for our own community as migrants workers, as migrants. And we work with migrant workers in Asia. There are about 2 million migrant workers from Cambodia into Thailand recently, and in Malaysia, in Japan, in South Korea. We're out of our country. Then we need to get organized, and that's what the Khmer Movement for Democracy is about: organizing, planning, how speaking as a voice, as Cambodian American, Cambodian Australian, Cambodian European, whatever. But we need to get into local politics. We need to organize, and we need to understand the generation of Cambodian today.
Well, clearly, all of those listening can hear the both energy, enthusiasm, the curiosity, and the tactics of good old sort of grassroots organizing, like talking to people, listening to people, hearing their stories. I want to come back to stories, but one of the things we try to do at Better Politics Foundation is understand what are the important skills and mindsets necessary to be an effective political actor, a political actor for democracy. Looking back at your work in politics, what have been those one or two really important skills or mindsets that you think has allowed you to be as effective as you have been?
You know, as I go back to 18 years in exile outside of my country. When I grew up, I was sent to a French school. So I had a French education for 18 years. But at home, I spoke Cambodian and I spoke Chinese. Because my great grandparents, maternal, came from China. And then when I went back to Cambodia, I had to kind of readjust. I had to learn Cambodian again because it was not the Cambodia that I left. The big schools, the modern Cambodia that I left was gone. So you go back to the roots. You go back to every single village wherever I went. I had to, as I said, we got back to the mass graves, right? So I had to face the mass graves in terror because I was still looking for my parents. And it was then that I learned Cambodian, the real Cambodian. It was then that I learned what is Cambodia? The food of the local people, of the farmers, of the villagers, the story of the women who were tortured, who had babies during the genocide and then had to survive on their own. And it's all about listening. I think the first thing is get yourself down on the ground where the farmers are, where the women who sell their small vegetables, little vegetables that they had from the garden at the market, making not more than $1 a day. Sit down, listen to them.
Yeah, it seems so obvious that listening and being close is one of the most important attributes, right? Because that, unless you know what people want, it's very hard to connect to them. Besides listening, you're quite a good organizer, right? You do things, right? You're involved in the World Liberty Congress. Besides listening, is there another really important skill you thought has been important to being effective?
Oh, after you listen, then what? You have to be logical. You know, it's like you rearrange your message drawer. Where do you put your bras? When do you put, because we're women, right? your bra,
Yes.
your panties and your whatever. This is so messy. You can't stand it. You can live with it. You can't. Yeah, because otherwise you come to this room and then you get depressed. So I
Yeah.
cannot. To me, looking at the women who are so dynamic but still not living above poverty, you organize. So that's why the first organization that I headed was Camera, working with urban poor, helping them with little funds to start a small business. We can't even call it business. You can just $5 a day. How can you make? How can you help them from $1 to $5 a day? And this then it's about finding who is the leader in this group. Who
So
can make
talent spotting, right? Talent
yes,
spotting, like
yeah,
seeing.
yeah.
I
I
have
think
to
that
say before we go to that, I do want to say you're the first person that I've ever heard draw the metaphor of a messy bra and underwear drawer to politics. But I will tell you, I haven't been feeling well, and so I decided to stay home, and I'm getting this to just to heal from some things, and I'm better. But I organized my underwear and sock and bra drawer, and I feel so much better. And I really understand what that means. Like, so much of politics, in my experience and life, but politics is it's messy, right? And the job of a leader is to help sort it. It sometimes just you can't even fix it, but you can
yeah,
sort it and better understand it and have this perspective. So first you go to places, then you curiously listen, then you kind of pilot together. It's already piled. Then you help organize it. Now it sounds like you find talent. You
yes.
look for the people who can also be along with you. So how do you find talent? What makes talent?
I also worked with refugees, Cambodian refugees in the camps for 6 years. In the crowd of refugees, hungry people, hungry women, pregnant women, there is always one person, a
Hmm.
woman, even among children, there's always one who stands up or stand out, you know? And to me, I always look for women, of course, or youth, female youth, or a girl, uh, they are always there. I say one, there's more than one. And then if there is more than one who can stand up, who are leaders, how do we get the two leaders in the same crowd, in the same village to work together? Now it gets into politics. Then it gets
Hmm.
into how do you negotiate? How do you support the two, the three, the four leaders that we find in this community? So now it's about themselves getting to communicate among themselves, and
Hmm.
then
Hmm.
and then it gets into resources. What are resources? What are the resources that you have in this community? Even who has a boat? Who has the net to go fishing? I thought so. When I came back to a country that is that simple, do you
Wow.
have a boat to cross that river? Man, you
Wow.
can own that whole river. But the
Wow.
politics is about you cannot let that person own the whole river
Yeah.
because yeah, it's the river is for the whole community. But
Yeah.
it's then negotiating, shifting that power. That this is where power comes from, and this is when women are very good at, and they negotiate among themselves because if we fight, then who will be losing? We can't spend time fighting because we have to go back home and care for the kids. You have to cook the rice and make the soup. You don't have time to fight. Organize, talk, negotiate, give up, give in, and find a compromise. And then at the end of the day, a solution for all.
Well, I see it. I see this direct path, right? You go to where people are, you listen to them, you pull all of the things together, you help organize it, you identify a leader, you identify resources, and then you negotiate over how to share those resources and how to use those resources. I'm sure it's not always linear in that way, but it's also not rocket science. I mean, I think a lot of people who may or may not be listening to this think politics is complicated, and it is, but it's also just about humans, and there are structures that you've been put in place. What, why did you learn this? Like, this seems to me, and talking to you, that like you were born knowing all of this. Was that true? I mean, I see that you're a social worker. And as I said, I find social workers often great politicians because they learn to listen. They go to where people are at. They look at the challenges. They look at the resources. But where did you learn this?
First, I learned this discipline from my mother. I learned my mother was a businesswoman, very successful woman. I was young. I would watch her get dressed, go out.
What was her business? What was her business?
Oh, she only had 3 years of education.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she would go out. I don't know what her business was actually.
Yeah, she just made money.
She supported the whole family. And then wow. She always brought her friends over, and she would go to the market and with me and all that. But because she was always running out of time, and she was so organized. But at the same time, I said, I wish my mom would just stay home with me. I don't like it. But at the same time, I learned. But that's part of my mom. But the part then with me, as I said, I worked with refugees. I was a student in San Francisco in 1975. It was the fall, 1979. The first, we call the boat people, the refugees from Southeast Asia started to come to America. Then they had to find someone who could translate for the Cambodian refugees. My brother and I were students. There were only 8 Cambodian students in San Francisco at that time in 1980, very early on. And my first family was a family of 5 children. One of the children is autistic. The father was dying of cancer. The mother was a nurse. So you have to set them into the American social welfare system, get the food stamps and so on, and then get the father to treat his cancer. And then the autistic boy, I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah.
But you just had to do it because all of a sudden you are responsible for a family of 5 of 7, one of whom the father dying of cancer. You just have to do it.
Wow. So you learned on the job helping other people, basically. Navigating hard systems, fighting bureaucracy, dealing with cultural issues, you learned on the job. I mean, that's so much what you have to do in politics, particularly in constituency work, right? When you're working with the citizens, you have to sort of be an advocate and facilitate a lot of things for them, which transfers to politics. Is that what drew you into going to social work, or did you want to be a social worker first?
No. I studied psychology first. And then when I had to be a social worker, then I said, well, I'm going to get a master's. And I got a master's in social work. And when I got into politics, they look at my background. I said, what does a social worker have to do with this? I said, I'll show you. I'll show you.
You had a little bit of your mother in you at that moment. So let's talk about your time in politics. You were a woman in politics, which was not an easy thing. You eventually left because of corruption. Give us a flavor of what it was like to be this psychology social worker, sort of newly back to your country, right? After this time away, educated in the US, you come back. Give us what did that feel like, and why did you leave?
This is a coincidence, Lisa. Today, 22nd January 2004 was exactly the day I left the ruling party, the government, to join the opposition, because it was the day that Chia, the trade union leader who organized the workers who were exploited by the Chinese owners of these companies, was assassinated.
Wow.
Yeah, it's today. He was very famous. He was the man of the people. And I was there as a minister. I felt terrible because he was already dead. Blood and his children, his daughter, his infant, baby, we were all there. And I said, no, I got to come into opposition, leave this government that is so corrupt, and fight with the workers, fight with the people who are actually supporting the economy of the country, but they are the poorest of the poor. Yeah. So
could I ask a question about that though? Because I'm sorry you went through that. I'm sorry for him. I can't even imagine, this traumatic experience. Political assassinations, unfortunately, are not that rare in politics. They've happened through time, and they're happening more. As you know, violence against politicians is going up all over the world. But there's this difficult decision that people have to make. Do you stay working within a corrupt and broken system where you have power to at least try to change things? Or do you go on the outside and have very little power in the short term? And so how did you weigh that? Like, was it just such a shocking event? Was it the tip? Because you gave away power, basically, to go build power in a different way. So just curious, to talk us through that decision. And I can't believe today's the anniversary, 22 years. What an honor to speak to you today.
In politics, something that you are so involved in, but when there is no more solution that you can find, you need to leave. Because either you are not efficient anymore, or you don't want to waste your time in that box, solving barriers after barriers. You need your mind, your brain, and I always let people know, especially the young people, you are smart, but don't stay stuck. Never be stuck. Move out. So I come into opposition. And in opposition,
Just one final question on that. Looking back at that moment where you decided to leave, should you have left earlier?
I always, in my life, so many times when I couldn't save someone, when my life was in trouble, I would say, oh, should I have? And if you're stuck with should I have, then you're stuck in the past.
Yeah, I see.
The past gave you something, but the past cannot take you over the river, cross that mountain. It's the today and the planning for tomorrow. How do you cross over that river? Yeah?
Yeah.
I always come back to the river because the river for Cambodian women is important, very important. We live with the water, we need water and all that. There's a Cambodian proverb. The word giving birth is you cross the river. When a woman gives birth, the woman crosses the river. So the proverb is get her strong, get her ready to cross that river. Yeah. And if you survive, you cross that river, that means you're safe. Because the maternal mortality is so high, was so high in Cambodia in the old days, if you depend on the midwife. It's not very sophisticated, but she can help you. So when you cross that river, then you have given birth to a new life. So it's like if you cross that river and you find a solution, that means you have a solution not for you, but for the whole community, for whole nation. That's crossing the river.
Well, I want to talk about this river crossing and the beautiful metaphor of it to birth, which is very feminine two-piece. I mean, some of our listeners won't know anything about the Khmer Rouge and the genocide. It was one of the most horrible dark times in the history of any country, and it's not as well known for various reasons. But you came back into politics, as you were saying. You were seeing mass graves all over the place, and to move into a politics where the past is so present and so horrific. I mean, horrific. It's very interesting that you talk about living in the present, because many of the politics that we see, politics of trauma, of aggrievement, are very much, of course, I don't want to say stuck in the past, because they're not, because that's part of the story. But it sounded like one of the things that you did in your politics was to recognize the past and move them over the river, right, to the new future. And how did you do that? Because if people are living with either just deep trauma or fear, how did you move people? Like, did you move them by just getting them active to say, okay, yes, this what happened is bad, but our way through? How did you bring them that light?
I think first of all is how do I get out of this mess? you
Yeah.
know, because I went back and then I had no idea it was going to be to rebuild. I went back to look for my parents who disappeared or maybe died of starvation or murdered or massacred with the rest
sorry.
of the 1/3 of the population. But then I was never left alone. Like I worked in the refugee camps. I was never left alone. It was always I was with a group of people with problems. We have to find the solutions together. But of course, I was a leader. But I knew this is what helps me in real politics now, is that, remember I said that I was educated in French, right?
Yeah.
So when I go back to do Cambodian politics, people will laugh at me because my Cambodian accent has a little bit of something. And I have difficulty with some, like if I read it, as a member of parliament, you have to read the constitution, you have to read the law. And then I have some difficulties in that, but I had to force to speak it. And now people say, wow, you're good, sister, you're good. It's that trying to fix, to be in the crowd, to be accepted, that I learned to say to other people, you are okay.
Mm.
You will be accepted and we will be accepted. But don't say that you can't find that solution. You can. And I always find that it is more, after you listen to the story, you cried and all that, you have to go above it. Because otherwise you can't help. And then the responsibility of a whole nation that I feel that I have. And that, Cambodia is a very autocratic country. That's why I am in forced exile. I am sentenced to 47 years in prison. 47 years for what? For speaking out, for organizing, for mobilizing, for being in opposition. But that should not stop you. It is only given you even more force to say that, no, we have to save the country. And we have to save it together. It's never saying that you do it yourself. Never. You cannot do anything yourself. It's about all of us doing it together. That's the best solution.
It is, and I remember when I was talking to you, I know one of the ways you do your organizing is ways that I have found to be not just effective, but right, is you organize in kitchens, right? You organize Cambodian people in kitchens. I've spent time better understanding the role that rice plays in many of Southeast Asian and Asian cultures. It's a staple. It's a food. How do you use food and culture in your organizing, right? Because food and culture are a sense of belonging for migrants. I'm living outside my country in Germany. But I know that there are certain things that, like, when I'm around Americans and we have maple syrup on our pancakes, which isn't something you do in Germany, I feel this sense of belonging to other people. How did you use food and culture in your organizing?
This is a very important question that you asked, and I have to answer correctly. step by step. As I say, I'm president of the Khmer Movement for Democracy, or KMD. And for over 2 years, I went all over the world. Wherever there is a Cambodian community, I'm there. When I'm there, I travel there with my fractured lumbar at my age. I'm 70.
How old are you? Can you share? How old are you?
This year, I'm 72. So to me, it's about organizing. How do we organize 3 million Cambodians outside of Cambodia to have voices, right? So that we can fight back, restore democracy in Cambodia. We can go back to Cambodia and let Cambodia live again, right? And not at this moment, the family that rules Cambodia for over 40 years is the Hun family. The father, the son, they have everything. In politics, in business, they control everything. However, we are from 2 to 3 million outside. Educated, we don't have to beg for food like in Cambodia, right? We have the voice, you have freedom, you speak, you organize. So whenever I go to a community, we don't stay in hotels. We stay in a family home. Yeah. So when you go to a home, people will come and greet you at the airport, and they take you to their home, and they give you they choose in the community the best home. That's such an honor, such an comfort. First thing you go in is, first thing we say to each other is, have you been fed yet? Wow, what a long journey. You have not been fed yet, right? But then they get you home and you smell the flavor of the soup, the lemongrass, the curry, the onions, the garlic. I'm home. I'm home, right? And if in that home, that family that is that welcomes us has a grandmother, wow, that is even the best, because then she can make you the pickle that your grandmother used to make you, put you in the soup that you had to eat when you were sick. So it's Cambodia everywhere outside of Cambodia.
Wow.
And it's always around food. We have a serious meeting with the leader of the party, the leader of the group, and we are talking about food. I said, come on, we have to find a solution. But they said, no, we're hungry first. Then we feed the body, and then we feed the mind. So food is important, really important.
Well, what I think is so important, a lesson that I've learned in politics, is that you have to work with the culture and not against it, right?
Yeah.
And it's very important to do that. And people go into and are interested and are affected by politics because it's deeply human. So I love that story. I can almost smell the garlic, and I love the fact that there was a grandma you would light up. And I too think politics should be about staying in people's homes and staying really with your feet close to where people are at. We're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes, but I wanted to come back to 2 or 3 things. People who are listening to this are people who are interested in politics. Many of them are members of this network that we have that are building better politics all over the world. Some of them in exile, some of them not in exile. If you could change one thing about politics today that would make it better, what would you change? And if you had one piece of advice for people listening right now, what would that be?
I would say, the whole night I was watching the speeches of the world leaders at the World Economic Forum. I would say these world fora, we should not put these world leaders there because they have not found the solution yet. It should be a mixture. I listened to the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney.
Mark Carney. Yeah.
Incredible speech, incredible speech. And then I listened to President Trump, and then I watch Macron and all that. I say they should be listening to us. If we could change, I would say change so that the difference between the very top and the space between the top and the regular people, should not be so wide.
Yeah.
We should be at this more get together conferences gathering at local levels and bring them not to ski resorts and all that. Like talk
Yeah.
real of the
Yeah.
local people.
Yeah. Yeah, there is this distance. And a guy named John Alexander, who wrote a book called Citizens, says to me that maybe the metaphor is broken or the language is broken on public service. Instead of thinking about politicians serving the public, maybe they should facilitate solutions with the public instead of being like the all-knowing person who has the answers. And I think that's quite interesting. In our last minute, we started this talking about stories. You listening to stories and being really inspired by them, and that was part of your journey away, a journey to, a journey back, and it's definitely part of the journey that you're on now. We are all wired for stories. Our brains are. We have been since time. What's a story? Leave our listeners today with a story that gives you hope.
Well, we're about to listen to this, Lisa. We're going to organize an election of the Khmer Overseas Citizen Assembly, which means the 3 million of us who are outside of Cambodia will elect our own parliament. I learned it from the people of Tibet outside. Yeah. So this big initiative is like I said, how can we do this? We are going to have representatives of the community elected by the people in the community, and then show to the dictators in Cambodia that we can hold free, fair elections.
Wow.
And that means organizing community by community, going and then using the freedom that we have outside, and then organizing, starting by getting together, organizing, having 7 people, excuse me, to form the election committee. Standards, principles, human rights, the right to vote, all of that, we can do it. And we must do it so that the hope for the people inside Cambodia to say that we have the Cambodian diaspora are elected. We have our representatives outside of Cambodia, because inside you can't do anything. Then the elected members of the Cambodian community will be speaking with the big politicians at the UN, at the EU, in wherever, and we will speak to represent the people inside Cambodia. That's the hope. And the other hope is that for the Cambodian children born outside of Cambodia, they can also stand for election, and their hope is that we will not be just another, my parents are not going to be working in donut shops or in factories in chicken. I cry when I see young refugees who are working now in chicken factories. I cry. If we don't do anything, if there's no hope, but it's to just learn and wait and be because you came as a refugee, as a migrant. You're going to be stuck in these factories. You're going to be stuck as a skilled labor. It's not right. We have to organize. We have to give hope so that the children, our Cambodian children today, this generation, the next generation, can be proud of their roots, can also be part of the new, the country that adopted them. You know, it is to me. I was listening to the people in Iran. I was listening to the Iran, Uganda, Venezuela, all that. At this moment, where there's so much trouble inside the country, but the diaspora, you're learning with the diaspora outside how to get back home, how to organize, and that's hope. Otherwise, you're stuck.
Well, I will say, as we end this podcast, you give me hope. And what gives me even more hope is your commitment to bringing up other young Cambodian leaders. I know this is something you spend a lot of time doing, is lifting others. And I got involved in politics because I love people. And I think that that's what we have in common. So on behalf of the Better Politics Foundation, I want to thank you for your lifelong commitment. I want to apologize for the pain that you have suffered and the people of Cambodia. And I want to walk away with hope and support for one day democracy back in Cambodia. And I know that there's some people there that you really miss. And I just wish all the best for you. So thank you for being on the Better Politics podcast.
Lisa, one last thought, one last piece of what I'm doing. I just announced to the public on Monday that I am going back home.
You are?
Yeah. I'm preparing my journey to go back home, despite the fact that I have 47 years of sentence, but I am determined to go back home. I'm preparing the journey. My daughter was listening to what I was saying, and she said, "Ma, okay, when you go back home, you can't right now you're talking too much about America. You have to talk about going back home, back to when you went 30, 40 years ago. You went on your own to Cambodia." And then she said, you're going to be talking to Lisa. Rita, talk to Lisa, because Lisa is a communicator, the best communicator that she knows. Ask Lisa to get you some help to how to communicate. Your communication on your X account, not good. So that's what she told me this morning.
Well, I'm very happy to have a separate conversation, and of course, and it opens up a bunch of questions. You know, you are facing sentence. It's very uncertain times. Wow, that's a lot to process.
I could be arrested, so I have to prepare.
Yes. Well, I'm very happy to have a conversation on how you prepare for that. And I just really, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you. I learn from you every time I talk from you too, especially from the bathroom to the underwear and bra drawer to thinking about going home in these times. Well, so thank you very much.
I thank you.